So this is the part that nobody really likes to talk about that much, and the stuff that we wish we never had to deal with, and that's, the admin, the basic music business, um, of film scoring or of music in general, I guess. Um, See, the thing is with music business, it's just it's better to get assistance with certain things. You most likely, because most of you, well, I'm from South Africa, so being in South Africa, the businesses may be different to other parts of the world. Here, a lot of the time, you're not gonna get the highest budgets in the projects. It can happen now and then when you're lucky, but you usually don't get that, and that means it's important to negotiate that you get to keep your back end. Now, back end is the publishing rights, and your composer's share stays with you always, but then there's also the publishing rights as well. So um, you kind of have to go and sit down, go to Samro, go to Capasso, and ask them how to explain it to you in the simplest way how this whole thing works, because it can get a bit complicated, but it's important that you know it, because you could lose out on a lot of money not knowing how your rights and your mechanicals and your publishing and your performance royalties work. So to try simplify it, you've got there's different types of rights. Mechanical rights is basically when your song gets sold, in terms of like when you've got a hard copy. Say, for example, you've got a song and you put it on Apple Music or another platform where people buy copies of the song. That is mostly the mechanicals, the actual hard copy of the song, like the actual file, the way the file is after it's been rendered. That's how I understand it to be the mechanical part of it. So in hip hop, a lot of the time, some people sample from the mechanical, which is why they have to pay royalties. But you still have to get permission if you use the same formula by recreating the music. This is getting confusing. Okay, let me try again. Mechanicals is basically that file as it is when it's been rendered. It's the sound recording, and there are rights attached to that. And every time they use those rights, every time those rights get played or get used somewhere, there are royalties that are supposed to come through to you. The same thing applies when there's performance in terms of publishing, and I think publishing refers more to the formula at which your song is made up of. So the way the melodic structure is, that formula, I would think that goes towards more the publishing side. And whenever that gets played or gets used, there are royalties attached to that. Now, again, please do your research on this and get to a point where you understand it really well. Um, it's still something I'm also trying to figure out, but basically, you have to try and retain these rights as often as possible, especially if the upfront fee for your compositions is little. Try to own these so that whenever the channels and the cinemas play the music, they keep track of it when you send them cue sheets. And when you send them cue sheets, they take those cue sheets and then they keep track of all the music of yours that they've played, and you're supposed to get royalties from that. Okay, I'll go over it again one last time. Basically, let me illustrate it this way. I'll compose music for a series. What happens is I'll keep track of all the tracks that I've composed, how long they each are, and I'll put them on what we call a cue sheet that has all that information. The author, the composer, that's usually both myself, the duration of the song, the name of the song, and which show or which episode it's for. Now, I submit those along with the music. When they take that music and they put it in the show, and then the show airs, they submit those cue sheets to the channel, and then the channel has a record of the music that they've used. That's the information they then go to Samro with and say, this is the amount of tracks that we've used this year. These are the tracks. This is how long they played for, and so on and so forth. And then Samro then dishes out money that they get from Channel to pay for the royalties. So they're supposed to pay royalties for every single piece of music that they play, unless they own it. But if you own the music, there's performance royalties that need to be paid out to you. So the same thing goes with Capasso. Capasso works with mechanicals. Samro works with performance and publishing. So make sure you visit those two places and get to know them, get to understand exactly what you need to be doing, and get to understand your contracts. Make sure that whenever you draw out a contract or you receive a contract, that you understand every aspect of that contract and what each thing means. I've got a personal contract that I work with, and I know it basically inside out. And I know that every time I sign this contract with the channel, or I sign this contract with the production company, I know exactly where I am in the big scheme of things. Sometimes, obviously, the bigger channels like Netflix, they'll send you their very own contract. Make sure you understand it. Make sure you know exactly what that means. And with Netflix, they usually buy you out in terms of the publishing and all of that stuff and the mechanicals. They usually prefer to own that, but they make up for it by giving you a bigger upfront fee. So it's worth it when you give up the rights to the music. So get to know these things, get to understand them, and be in a better position to negotiate whenever you're about to start a new project and all of that stuff. And just make sure that you are aware of everything that's happening and what each word means of a contract. For example, the sound recording refers to the mechanical, and sometimes those contracts get a bit tricky where they say, where you might forget to mention in the contract that the sound recording, the rights of the sound recording still vest in the composer. Sometimes when you don't mention that, it could be, a bit weird. They might feel like they own the sound recordings and whatnot. So a lot of the terms, make sure that you consult a lawyer and make sure that you're very, very aware of what's happening in there. So yeah, get to know your music business and try to make as much money as you can.